Hey guys, what's going on? Abby here. Welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. This one is another build, but this time we're looking at Titan and we're going to be in the Solar subclass. Now there are a lot of Titan Solar videos out there, but I don't like using the baby hammer, the middle tree. So this build focuses on the bottom tree and those sunspots, which are super awesome. You're going to get sunspots every time you get a kill with a melee, with a grenade, with your super, with anything. And solar ability kills are going to restore your health as they leave that sunspot in its wake. We're also going to get Sun Warrior, which says passing through a sunspot causes your grenade and melee abilities to recharge faster and your super to last longer. It also increases the damage your weapons deal. So you always want to have that Sun Warrior buff up, and it's pretty easy to do with the build that we've put together. The last part is the melee. All it is just a standing regular melee, and if it's charged, you're going to do a solar blast. And it has an amazing AoE effect, so if you use this on a lot of little ads, in particular the Lost Sector that I'm going to show you guys, Aphelios Rest, has a lot of little scions. So we ran through that on the 1320 today, so you can see how this build performs. But I really like bottom tree. I've always loved bottom tree, and it's finally kind of getting its chance to shine this season. And there are a lot of variations that you can use with this. Let's go over the weapons really quick, even though obviously the weapons you can swap out based on the activity and the shields you need to account for. For this 1320 Lost Sector, I'm going to go with Monte Carlo so that if I need to get melee energy, I can. For the most part, I'm not even going to have to shoot this gun, but it's just there for a safety net. Also, it's a great option if you have anti-barrier. If you're going into an activity with anti-barrier, you could also run Traveler's Chosen for the ability energy and for Unstoppable. You could run a kinetic bow if you need to for the overload, but for us, we're going to be using Thermoclastic Strike to deal with the overload champions. Next up is Null Composure. This is Void, which we need for this Lost Sector, and we're running Unstoppable Fusion. But like I said, you could use Traveler's Chosen for the Unstoppable, and then something like Threaded Needle, which is a Void Bow for the Overload here. And then for heavy, we have the Crown Splitter, which is the Titan's amazingly strong sword. You can use Vorpal, or you could use Relentless Whirlwind, or whatever combination of perks you like the best. Another great option is Ascendancy, and then we also have Corsair's Wrath. So we can use these two, and we can also use Vex, obviously, Cartesian Coordinate, and Tiku's Divination. Those are all solar that we could swap in here if we want to swap on Font of Might. For this Lost Sector in particular, we're going with the Void because there are a ton of Void shields. So you just kind of have to go with what you need for the activity that you're doing. The other cool thing about this build is that you can kind of mix and match the mods based on what activity you're doing and what weapons you're using. So if you're using solar weapons, you're obviously going to want to change out one of these for Font of Might to give you that extra solar damage. You could also swap Synthoceps here for something like Phoenix Cradle if you're in a group, or the Path of the Burning Steps if you're using solar damage, or even something like Dunemarchers to get that extra damage from your melee. For me, I like to go with Synthoceps because this is going to buff the damage to our melee, which you're going to need when you get into those higher end game activities, because sometimes one melee is not going to be enough to kill, and we need those melee kills to generate our wells. For the rest of the armor on the helmet, we've got a hands-on mod and an ammo finder. You could put two hands-on if you really wanted to. Here would give you more super energy. And then we've got elemental charge. When we pick up a well, we're going to get a ×2 stack of charge with light because our wells are going to be solar, which matches our subclass. Then moving down to our arms, we've got Thermoclastic Blooming. This is what enables us to spawn like 4 to 5 orbs every time we get a melee kill. It's actually pretty insane, as you guys can see from the footage. And then for this Lost Sector, I'm using Unstoppable Fusion Rifles, and then we're actually going to use one of the new mods that you can get at the Wayfinder's Compass, Bountiful Wells. This spawns additional wells for each additional copy of the mod you have equipped. This also counts as like having an additional mod. So we have that Bountiful Wells mod on, and then down here on our feet, we have Melee Wellmaker. So we're going to get a well whenever we get a powered melee kill on something. But we're actually going to be getting 2 wells because we have Bountiful Wells on here. So after playing around with this Bountiful Wells mod a little bit, I figured out that it is way more efficient for you to have different sources of wells. And since we're solar, we are really fortunate enough that we can have explosive Wellmaker, which is going to give us wells when we get explosive multi-kills, which could be from our rocket launchers, could be from our grenades, our melee. All these different things can give us explosive Wellmaker. Even some weapons like Wither Horde, so you can really kind of be creative with it. But having explosive Wellmaker on here plus Bountiful Wells gives us 2 wells from that. Having Bountiful Wells plus melee Wellmaker gives us 2 wells from a melee kill. And having elemental armaments and our solar weapons that I mentioned before is also going to give us 2 wells. So there are lots of different ways that you can get a lot of wells. You could also have a stasis helmet here. If you guys have a stasis energy helmet, you can put elemental time dilation on here, which will give you a couple more seconds of that font of might, that extra solar damage boost. You don't need to put an additional font of might on. You can if you want to, but adding this 1 elemental time dilation gives you a few more seconds. Power Preservation is also a great helmet mod for a stasis energy piece. It's going to give you extra orbs of power for your allies, which is always great. Here's another option for you. I know you guys are probably sick of all these options for now, but on another solar piece, you could put Wrath of Rasputin, which is going to give you Warmind cells on solar splash damage final blows. Now, I know Warmind cells have kind of gotten nerfed into the ground, but they still do decent at close quarters ad clear. So if you wanted to pop one of those on, you could as well. I also tested out Fire and Ice with the Bountiful Wells, and it only dropped 1 additional stasis one. So there were 3 stasis and 2 solar. I'm not sure if it's a random or not, but you could always pop that on as well, especially if you're in a fire team with someone who's running a stasis build. So over to our chest piece, we're using Striking Light, which you could use really whatever you want. You could get more wells by defeating champions. If you're using solar weapons, you could put your Font of Might here. Or if you need additional strength, you could use Radiant Light as well. Or Heavy Handed is a great option as well. So whatever you have on hand. Striking Light, however, is great if you're in a fire team because it's going to spawn an Orb of Power every time you defeat an enemy with melee damage or your sword, and it's going to consume 1 stack of Charge with Light. But the secondary perk is also really great solo because you're going to get damage resistance when you're sprinting. Okay, so now that I've completely confused you, let's take a look at this image here and go over the basic mods that you're going to want to have on this build. So on your helmet, you want Hands On. Then on your arms, you want Thermoclastic Blooming. That is the mod that's going to create all of those orbs on your solar melee kills. Then once you have those on, you get to pick 5 combat mods to put on your 5 pieces of armor. Now, the base ones are going to be Bountiful Wells, which we talked about. That is what's going to duplicate the number of wells that you drop. Melee Wellmaker, since we're getting our charged melee back very quickly. Explosive Wellmaker is a great one for solar, or you could switch this out for Well of Life if you feel like you need the extra health recovery. In addition to those 3, if you're using solar weapons and getting a lot of solar weapon kills, you also want to put on Font of Might, and then you could also put on Elemental Armaments. You could swap out Elemental Armaments for Wrath of Rasputin for the solar damage Warmind cells, or Elemental Time Dilation, the Stasis Helmet mod that extends the time of your Font of Might. If you're not running solar weapons, then I would recommend using a couple Charge with Light mods. You want to use Elemental Charge to get Charged with Light from your solar wells, and then choose a Damage Charge with Light mod. High Energy Fire is a great general one. You could also use Striking Light if you're using a sword and for your melee damage. Lucent Blade is also a great option if you're using a sword. And this is what I've been running on my Titan lately. I'm really happy to get back to my Bottom Tree Sunbreaker. It's so much fun creating sunspots everywhere. I highly recommend you guys try it out and let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.